You know that feeling when you pack up a box, seal it up tight, hand it over to the person at the shipping counter, and walk away? We all kinda just assume our privacy is completely secure at that point, right? We want to believe our personal stuff is safe from prying eyes. But is your privacy actually always protected? And maybe more importantly, who is legally allowed to search your packages once they leave your hands? It's a question that gets right to the very core of our constitutional rights, but the answer we're going to uncover today might absolutely shock you.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a truly fascinating legal mystery centered around a landmark Supreme Court case, People v. Marti. That's GR number 81561, decided on January 18, 1991. It is essentially a true crime story wrapped up inside this massive, high-stakes constitutional debate, and it completely redefined the boundaries of our personal privacy. So get comfortable, because we're about to explore exactly what happens when your private secrets fall into the hands of an ordinary, everyday citizen.
All right, Part 1, the suspicious Zurich shipment.
Okay, picture this. It's the morning of August 14, 1987, at the Pistang Pilipino complex in Ermita, Manila. Just a totally ordinary day at the Manila Packing and Export Forwarders booth. Around 10 a.m., this guy named Marti and his common-law wife show up to drop off 4 gift-wrapped packages destined for a friend in Zurich, Switzerland. Now, the proprietress asks to inspect them, but Marti refuses. He assures her, hey, it's just books, cigars, and gloves. But shortly after, her husband, Joe Breas, the proprietor of the shop, steps in. He's just following his standard operating procedure, doing a final inspection before sending things over to customs. He opens the boxes and immediately gets hit with this really peculiar odor. His curiosity is naturally piqued, so he squeezes one of the bundles, feels dried leaves, opens up a cellophane wrapper, and pulls out a sample. By 1:30 p.m., he's on the phone with the National Bureau of Investigation, the NBI, and handing over those exact samples. Literally, an ordinary morning turned into a major criminal investigation in just a few hours.
And there is some unbelievable dramatic irony here. Because these packages were meticulously secured. I mean, styrofoam placed perfectly on the top and bottom, the corrugated box tightly sealed up with masking tape. Martin clearly went to great lengths to pack everything just right to avoid detection. But what he totally failed to realize was that the shop owner's simple, everyday standard operating procedure would effortlessly undo all of that careful planning.
So, what was actually hiding inside? Well, when the NBI agent showed up at the agency, Joe Breas brought out the box and opened the packages right in front of them. And it turns out those 4 seemingly innocent gift boxes were packed with dried marijuana leaves. And they were super cleverly hidden, too, stuffed inside gloves, neatly stacked underneath cigars, and even pressed into these cake-like bricks hidden inside packages that were supposed to be books.
Obviously, the NBI agents immediately take inventory, they take formal custody of the contraband, and a couple of weeks later, they track down and arrest Marti. But this exact sequence of events triggers a massive, tension-filled legal headache that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The question was, did the NBI agents perform an illegal search? Legally speaking, did the government violate Marti's constitutional rights by seizing this evidence without a proper search warrant?
Section 2, the Constitutional Shield.
So Marti's entire defense rested on this idea that the Constitution absolutely protected his sealed boxes from government intrusion. And the crucial concept here is something called the Exclusionary Rule. Basically, this rule dictates that any evidence obtained in violation of the constitutional right against unreasonable searches and seizures is strictly inadmissible for any purpose in any proceeding. It's an absolute shield. If the government breaks the rules to find the evidence, they literally cannot use it against you in court. Full stop.
And just to give you an idea of how powerful this shield actually is, let's look back at a landmark 1967 case, Stonehill v. Diokno. In that case, the Supreme Court struck down 42 general search warrants for various offices and homes. The court boldly ruled that the state cannot just blindly fish for evidence without specific probable cause tied to a specific offense. The government can't just rummage through your life hoping they stumble across a crime. This protection is really the bedrock of a free society, and honestly, initially, this precedent made things look really bad for the prosecution in Marti's case, because the NBI definitely did not have a warrant when they walked into that shipping agency and took custody of those marijuana bricks.
Which brings us to Section 3, the private citizen loophole. So Marti is sitting there thinking he has this airtight defense, but he overlooked one giant critical detail. The law makes a very clear distinction when it comes to searches. On one side, you have state searches. If the government, like the police or the NBI, wants to search your stuff, they absolutely require a warrant and probable cause. But on the other side, we have private searches.
And here is the loophole. A private citizen needs no warrant. They are not bound by constitutional restraints. The Constitution protects you from the government, not from a curious shop owner inspecting a package in his own store.
To really hammer this point home, the Supreme Court actually quoted Constitutional Commissioner Bernas, who said, "The Bill of Rights governs the relationship between the individual and the state, not the relation between individuals." Because Joe Breas opened that box on his own initiative, just as a precaution for his private business, zero constitutional rights were violated. He wasn't acting as an agent for the police. He was just a businessman making sure he wasn't shipping illegal drugs.
And this perfectly illustrates why the NBI's actions were totally legal. The NBI agents merely observed what was already in plain sight after Joe Breas opened the boxes. The government didn't commit a trespass. They didn't pry open the sealed boxes themselves. A private citizen did. Therefore, seizing that marijuana was entirely lawful, and the evidence was 100% admissible in court.
Section 4. Beyond a reasonable doubt.
So, with his constitutional shield completely shattered, Marti has to pivot. And his actual backup defense? It's kind of wild. He claimed he met a complete stranger, a German guy named Michael, in an Ermia pub. He said they only chatted for about 30 minutes. Supposedly, Michael paid him 2,000 pesos to ship the packages because Michael was leaving the country the very next day. And, most unbelievably, Marti claimed he never even bothered to ask for Michael's last name, his address, or his passport number. He just blindly trusted a total stranger with 4 heavy, suspicious packages after a half-hour conversation at a bar.
Yeah, the Supreme Court was not buying it. They completely dismantled this flimsy alibi, relying on the standard from another case, People v. Dramayo. That case established that a conviction requires moral certainty, a certainty that satisfies the reason and conscience of those acting upon it. The court flat out stated that self-serving, unsubstantiated denials hold absolutely no evidentiary weight against credible facts. I mean, the court basically asked, would anyone in their right mind accept a suspicious package and a handful of cash from a total stranger without asking a single question? They found Marti's story completely incredulous and totally contrary to ordinary human experience.
And on top of that, the documentary evidence totally trapped him. Remember that contract at the shipping agency? Well, Marti actually signed the transaction contract as the owner and shipper of the packages to Zurich. He legally claimed ownership on paper. In the eyes of the court, that signature firmly cemented his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. He can't just pass the blame to some mysterious guy named Michael when your own signature is right there on the dotted line.
Which brings us to Section 5, the final verdict. So after all the constitutional debates and the absurd pub alibis, how did it all end? The Supreme Court affirmed Andre Martien's conviction. This case proved once and for all that contraband discovered by a private individual without any government interference is perfectly admissible in court. Think about that. A drug smuggler was legally sent to prison not because of some brilliant tactical police sting operation, but simply because of a private citizen's standard operating procedure. So, we'll leave you with this final, somewhat chilling thought. If your constitutional privacy is really only protected from the government, who is watching you right now? The next time you hand over your data, your property, or your packages to private companies and individuals, just remember the private citizen loophole. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. We really hope this visual journey gave you a brand new perspective on your constitutional rights. Keep your eyes open and keep learning.